We have the first problem here for April 6th. Use the quadratic formula in graph. Okay, so we're going to continue to review the quadratic formula. This is very important for your future math endeavors, and we don't want you to forget. So we're moving this 32 over, so we're going to have 56. Okay, so using the quadratic formula, a is equal to 1, b is equal to 15, and c is equal to 56. 56. Try to write that. Maybe? 56. There we go. And of course that's built on the idea of a times x squared plus b times x plus c. That's the standard form of a quadratic right there. Y equals that. Or if I don't want to say y, I could say f of x, which means the same thing, which means y, and it does not mean f times x, okay, just so you know. Some people, I've been seeing them, they'll say, oh, f times x, well, I better divide by f or something, or divide by x. Maybe I'll divide both sides by x. No, that's not how that works. F of x is just a label, which means the same thing as y. Okay, so the quadratic formula says x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over ab, 2a is what I meant to say. And so let's see, we'll say x is equal to negative b, that's negative 15, plus or minus the square root of 15 squared, which is 225, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and times c, which is 56. Okay, and this is all over. A lot of people, they forget this part of the line. They don't put the whole thing over 2a. But we better put it over all 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, so what does this look like? We have negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 225 minus, well, let's see, 4 times 56, 4 times 50 is 200, 4 times 6 is 24, so this is 224. So this is going to be very manageable here. 225, take away 224 is 1. The square root of 1 is just 1. So I'm going to say plus or minus 1. And if I add that 1, then I'll have negative 15 plus 1, that's negative 14 over 2. Negative 14 over 2 is 7. And if I subtract that 1, I'll have negative 15 minus 1, that's negative 16, divided by 2 is negative 8. So I have two answers right there, and that is significant. Those are my two answers where I'm going to plot my points. And so I have... let's see, we're going by 2's here, right? So there's 7 and there's 8. It's not going to be a beautiful graph here, is it? But we'll do the best we can. We know what happens in between. That's the axis of symmetry, right? So I'm going to try to put an axis of symmetry right down the middle of those 2 points. Okay. And let's see. What is right between negative 7 and negative 8? Well, I could do it 2 ways. I could add them together. I could add them together and divide by 2. But I kind of know it's negative 7.5, right? So the next thing I'd want to do then is to say, what happens when I plug in negative 7.5? And I think I'll let my calculator handle that. I'm going to say in my calculator, 7.2. And I'm going to square that, and I get 56.25. That's the first thing in the formula. If you're keeping track there, the formula says first thing is square it. So we're going to say 56.25, and we knew if we squared a negative, we'd get a positive. Then we're going to get a negative because it's 15 times that, so we're going to say 15 times negative 7.5, and we're going to get negative 112.5. And then the last thing is, in our adjusted formula, we said plus 56. I know it says plus 24 up there, but remember, we move the 32 over. So now we're going to add 56. Okay, so this is pretty close. Pretty close, because 56 and 56 makes 112. So I think we just have -2 left over, right? Let's see, if I say, I'm just going to make sure, since I'm doing this video, I don't want to be wrong. It's just 0.5 left over, 0.25 left over. That's not much. That's not much. 0.25, and by the way, it's negative. So they mostly cancel each other out. And this graph just continues to get less and less impressive. It may as well be 0 down there, okay? And what's more, we're never going to get over, a lot of times we like to think about what's the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept would be 56, and I don't have room to get to 56, so it's just a beautiful graph here. Just a beautiful graph. So I guess I'll just wing it. There it is. That's a beautiful parabola. I think I should have had a nicer looking sheet of graph paper there. I was never probably going to get to the y-intercept anyway, but if I give you something like that, that's the best you can do, unless you want to plug in a couple more points. I mean, I guess you could plug in what happens when x is 10 and see what y comes out to be, but I don't think that's going to affect the way your graph looks very much. So we used the quadratic formula. We found out it was pretty much bottoming out at 7.5, almost. It went underneath by a quarter, but that's not much. So there we go. We found our axis of symmetry here. We found our x-intercepts here. And this was our vertex. This was the y value of our vertex. What else do you want? I think we're good.